officer. This man is unstable and probably armed.
That's the first thing I hear stepping out of my truck, after driving 6 hours straight with renovation supplies in the bed. In my hands, Home Depot receipts and keys to the house I just bought. Police tape is already stretched across my own driveway. The air smells like pine and diesel, while Vivian Blackwood, the HOA president, stands there in designer sunglasses, convincing 2 cops that I'm trespassing on property I own outright. $180,000 cash, every cent my dad left me when he died. Money I used to buy this abandoned mountain house while I was still planning his funeral. What she didn't know is that I'm an electrician who spent 30 years spotting bad wiring, and even worse, lies. Her fake paperwork is about to blow up in her face, and I'm holding the detonator. Ever wanted revenge so bad it burns? This entitled HOA president is about to lose everything. Let me back up and tell you how I got into this nightmare. 6 months ago, I thought I was the luckiest guy alive. Dad had just died from lung cancer, and his life insurance left me $200,000. After 47 years as an electrician, I finally had enough to chase a dream. So I bought an abandoned A-frame at auction, sight unseen. $180,000 cash. 3 acres in the Blue Ridge Mountains. A 1970s horror show with a deck held up by hope and a prayer. The previous owner died 15 years ago. The estate finally gave up trying to unload it. I drove up with my truck full of tools, planning to document everything for Mountain Dream Renovation on YouTube. Sarah thought I'd lost my mind, but supported it. She'd keep working in the city while I made this place livable. Walking inside was like breathing decades of abandonment. Musty wood, mouse droppings, and that particular smell of dreams gone to rot. Wind whistled through gaps in the siding. The morning sun caught broken windows, casting fractured rainbows across water-damaged floors. But standing on the splintered deck, watching morning mist roll through pine trees, I could see our future. That's when Vivian Blackwood appeared. Day 3. This woman strolls up my driveway like she owns it. Perfect makeup at 7 a.m., designer hiking boots that probably cost more than my truck payment, and a welcome basket that felt more like a threat delivery system. Welcome to Whispering Pines. I'm your HOA president. Her smile had all the warmth of a tax audit. Thought you should know about our community standards. She spent 20 minutes cataloging my violations. Work truck and driveway, commercial vehicle violation, temporary power line, unsightly infrastructure, pile of rotted siding, accumulation of refuse. The woman took notes like she was documenting a crime scene. Click, 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 went her designer pen on that clipboard. Then came the 47-page covenant packet, highlighted like homework from hell. Everything needs architectural review, she said, eyeing my work clothes and steel-toed boots. We've worked hard maintaining property values. We want to ensure certain types of people understand expectations. The way she said, certain types, while staring at my beat-up Chevy. Yeah, message received loud and clear. Here's what 30 years of electrical work teaches you. When someone's throwing that many red flags, the wiring's about to catch fire. But I had bigger problems, like an electrical system held together with electrical tape and wishful thinking. So I played nice. Figured I'd pay her fees, get permits, avoid drama. Dad's estate needed settling anyway. Medical bills, house cleaning, all the bureaucracy that comes with death. I asked Pete, my neighbor, to watch the property. Retired teacher, seemed decent, lost his wife recently, lived alone in a cabin that smelled like coffee and loneliness. He promised weekly check-ins and regular texts. For 6 months, Pete's messages were identical. All good here, Garrett. See you when you get back. Everything seemed fine. I was grieving, handling lawyers, selling Dad's house. The mountain property felt like a distant dream I'd return to when the pain wasn't so fresh. But while I was planning funerals and signing probate papers, Vivian was planning something else entirely. See, what I discovered later is that she'd been visiting Pete weekly, not to chat about the weather or check on a lonely widower. She'd been offering him $500 a month to monitor my property. And by monitor, she meant document every flaw, every code violation, every excuse she could use. Pete thought he was helping both of us, keeping me informed while earning grocery money. What he didn't realize was that Vivian had been inside my house, photographing everything, building a case that would let her claim the property was abandoned and dangerous. The photos she took? They'd end up in a county filing that nearly cost me everything my father left behind. Because Vivian Blackwood doesn't just steal houses, she steals them legally. So here I am, 6 months later, staring at yellow police tape across my own driveway, while Vivian explains to 2 deputies why I'm apparently public enemy number 1. "Officers, this property has been abandoned for over 90 days, she's saying, waving that damn clipboard. The morning air carries the scent of pine, mixed with her expensive perfume, a combination that shouldn't exist in nature. Under state abandonment laws, we had no choice but to file for emergency abatement. Emergency abatement. Like my house was a crack den instead of a fixer-upper with some peeling paint. The older deputy, name tag reads Morrison, shifts uncomfortably. Gravel crunches under his boots as he steps closer to examine my deed. "Ma'am, if he's got the paperwork and property taxes are current—" "That's exactly the problem," Vivian interrupts, pulling out a manila folder thick as a small-town phone book. "Look at these photos of deteriorating conditions. Broken windows, structural damage, water intrusion. We've had multiple neighbors complaining about vagrant activity. Vagrant activity. On my own property. The audacity would be impressive if it wasn't so infuriating." She spreads photos across the patrol car hood like a poker dealer working a rigged game. Every loose board, every cracked window, every piece of demo debris documented with professional precision. What she conveniently doesn't mention is that half this damage happened during her weekly break-ins. Years of electrical work taught me to read situations fast. You learn that when someone's waving around an emergency situation that conveniently benefits them, you're looking at fraud with a legal veneer. The same way a homeowner claims their wiring is totally safe, right before you find aluminum wire connected to copper outlets with electrical tape. "Sir," Morrison turns to me. "Documentation of ownership?" I hand him the deed with shaking hands, not from fear, from pure rage. "Bought it 6 months ago. Cash. Property taxes paid through 2026. Then why the apparent neglect?" the younger deputy asks, notepad already out. That's when my filter breaks completely. "Because I've been burying my father. This house was bought with his death money, and while I was planning his funeral, this woman was apparently planning grand theft auto, except with real estate." "Sir, please calm down," Morrison warns, hand drifting toward his radio. "Getting agitated won't help your situation here." And there's Vivian behind them, wearing that satisfied smile like she's already picking out new furniture for my living room. Time to call reinforcements. Marcus Webb answers on the first ring. God bless lawyers who work weekends and understand genuine emergencies. "Emergency injunctions are the nuclear option," he explains while I pace beside my truck, boots clicking on asphalt. "They require immediate judicial action, which means someone convinced a judge you pose imminent danger. This isn't standard HOA harassment, Garrett. This is calculated warfare. Bring everything to my office Monday. Deeds, receipts, communications. We're looking at $2,500 minimum just to contest this properly. $2,500 to fight for something I already own. The American dream at work, folks." Meanwhile, Vivian's conducting a guided tour of my dangerous property. She points out every loose board like she's David Attenborough, narrating a nature documentary about suburban decay and community decline. "That electrical connection poses fire danger to the entire neighborhood," she announces dramatically, gesturing toward Pete's utility pole where I'd run temporary power. The irony could power the whole mountain. 30 years as a licensed electrician, and this woman who probably calls maintenance to change light bulbs is lecturing cops about electrical safety codes. That's when Pete shuffles over, guilt radiating from him like heat from summer asphalt. "Garrett," he whispers, glancing nervously at the deputies, still photographing my violations. "I got something important to confess." Here comes the gut punch. "She's been paying me $500 monthly to watch your place. I thought I was helping you both out. She said you'd specifically asked her to handle maintenance documentation while you were dealing with family emergency stuff." My stomach goes into absolute freefall. "Pete, what exactly did you let her do?" "She had keys made." His voice drops to barely audible. "Said you'd personally authorized it for insurance documentation and security purposes. She's been inside every single week, photographing everything, measuring structural stuff, documenting code violations. Keys. She's had keys to my house for months, complete access. Morrison approaches with paperwork I've never seen before. Sir, there's a temporary restraining order in effect. You cannot enter this property pending legal resolution. The filing date makes my blood run absolutely cold. Submitted 3 days ago. Before I'd even finished packing my truck to drive up here, she knew exactly when I was planning to return. Officers, Vivian calls out sweetly. I should also mention that Mr. Mackenzie made threatening statements during our previous interactions. I have complete documentation. The way Morrison looks at me now, like I'm the problem instead of the victim, tells me everything about how this game is rigged from the start. Best if you find other accommodations tonight, he suggests. Let the courts handle this properly. And just like that, I'm homeless on property I bought with my dead father's money. That night, sitting in a Motel 6 20 miles down the mountain, Sarah drives up from the city to find her husband defeated in a parking lot that smells like diesel fumes and broken dreams. They can't just steal our house, she says, pulling me into a hug that feels like the first real thing that's happened all day. The sound of 18-wheelers rumbling past on the interstate reminds me how far I am from my own property. But they can steal it, and they are. We spend the weekend in that motel room, stale coffee from a machine that sounds like it's dying, and the constant hum of the ice maker next door. Sarah's laptop balanced on a wobbly table as we dig through public records like archaeologists uncovering a crime. What we find makes my stomach turn. Blackwood Mountain Properties has flipped 6 distressed properties in our area over 18 months. Every case follows an identical pattern. Sudden HOA violations appear. Emergency legal proceedings get filed. Overwhelmed owners sell below market value to make it stop. Her average profit per house? $42,000 after cosmetic renovations. But Monday morning brings a new level of legal warfare. Sarah's checking email when she goes pale as winter mountain fog. Garrett, she's not done with us. It's a restraining order, filed against me personally. Vivian claims I threatened violence during Saturday's police encounter. Her evidence? Me raising my voice when I called her scheme grand theft. The restraining order covers 500 feet from both my property and her house. Since her place sits at the community entrance, I'm effectively banned from the entire neighborhood. This is psychological warfare, Sarah says, reading the legal language. She's claiming you said you'd make her pay and were visibly agitated with aggressive body language. Basic human anger weaponized through the court system. Marcus Webb's office smells like leather chairs and expensive frustration when we meet Tuesday. He spreads our documents across mahogany that probably cost more than my truck. Restraining order abuse is textbook property dispute strategy, he explains, adjusting reading glasses. Classic catch-22. Fight it and you look threatening. Don't fight it and you can't defend your property. Meanwhile, that 30-day demolition clock keeps running. Years of troubleshooting electrical problems taught me that when a system keeps shorting out, you don't just replace fuses, you find the source of the overload. Vivian's legal attacks felt coordinated, which meant she had inside help. Costs to fight both the restraining order and the property seizure, I ask? $8,000 minimum. $12,000 if this goes to trial. Money I burned through Dad's inheritance just to keep what's already mine. But while Marcus talks legal strategy, I'm thinking like an electrician. When circuits fail, it's usually because of bad connections. So I start mapping Vivian's connections. Her Facebook page is a prosecutor's dream she was too arrogant to secure. Posts about maintaining neighborhood standards and protecting property values from unsuitable residents. Photos from the county commissioner's fundraiser where she's writing checks and shaking hands with local officials. Then I find the golf tournament album. Vivian raising a champagne glass with the building inspector who condemned my house, plus a sheriff's deputy who looks suspiciously like Morrison. The good old boys network, captured in high-definition stupidity. Sarah discovers something equally damning in property records. The Hendersons down the road, $800 fine for unauthorized garden modifications. What modifications? 3 garden gnomes. Been there 15 years. I drive to their place, carefully staying 600 feet from Vivian's house. Frank Henderson answers, looking like a man who's been through a legal wood chipper. "You're the A-frame fellow," he says. "Welcome to the Vivian Blackwood experience." His wife Doris appears, coffee mug in hand and murder in her eyes. 15 years those gnomes sat there. Suddenly they're non-conforming decorative elements requiring architectural review. Let me guess, Fine arrived right before Blackwood Properties got a new listing nearby. Their exchange of looks confirms everything. "Johnson family 3 houses over," Doris explains. $2,000 fine for improper deck staining. Nothing wrong with that deck, but they couldn't afford lawyers. Sold to Vivian's company $30,000 under market. It's not harassment, it's a business model. But Frank drops information that changes the entire game. Vivian's ex-husband Walter still owns 40% of her company, he says quietly, glancing around like we're planning a heist. Nasty divorce 2 years back. He's down in Florida, but Pete's got his number from the old church directory. My electrician brain starts connecting circuits. Bitter ex-husband with financial stake in the company screwing people over. Divorce proceedings that might have left him wanting revenge. "Think he talked to me?" I ask. Frank's smile could power Christmas lights. "Son, Walter's probably been praying for someone like you to call." Walter Blackwood answers his Florida phone on the second ring, voice carrying the particular bitterness of a man who's been legally screwed by someone he once shared a bed with. "So, you're the latest victim of my charming ex-wife's real estate empire," he says after I explain everything. The sound of ice cubes clinking against glass travels 1,500 miles through the static. "Emergency abatement on property that's been sitting fine for months? Sounds like you've heard this song before." "Brother, I helped write the damn lyrics before she decided I was bad for business." He pauses, and I hear what sounds like a sliding door opening to ocean breeze and seagulls. "Here's what I can't tell you directly, because we're still fighting in divorce court over hidden assets, but Vivian borrowed $340,000 against the company for her recent property acquisitions. One deal going bad could collapse her entire operation like dominoes. Critical information filed away for later tactical use. The immediate problem is finding somewhere to sleep that isn't my truck bed. By Thursday, we've been mysteriously kicked out of 3 different motels across 2 counties. No specific incidents reported, just sudden complaints from other guests after phone calls to management. The woman's tentacles reach into every corner of this mountain region. Sarah suggests what I should have thought of myself. What about that reporter from the Mountain Echo? Jessica Brighton meets us at a Waffle House that smells like bacon grease, coffee burns, and honest conversation. She's sharp-eyed, notebook ready, and clearly starving for a story that isn't about church bake sales or high school football scores. HOA corruption stories are trending nationally, she says, stirring sugar into coffee strong enough to wake the dead. Problem is, Blackwood Properties spends $15,000 yearly on advertising with us. My editor needs absolutely bulletproof evidence before he'll risk that revenue stream. What constitutes bulletproof in journalism? Financial documentation showing systematic fraud patterns, legal proof the procedures were completely invalid, something that screams deliberate criminal intent rather than just aggressive property management policies. I mentioned the golf tournament photos, the clear pattern of forced sales, the weaponized restraining order tactics. She scribbles notes, but her expression stays professionally skeptical. All circumstantial evidence. You need hard documents that prove deliberate, knowing law-breaking. That's when Marcus Webb's paralegal calls Saturday morning with news that makes my hands literally shake on the truck's steering wheel. Those HOA covenant amendments Vivian's been using as legal basis for everything. They're completely invalid under state law. Meaning what exactly in practical terms? State nonprofit law requires 2/3 homeowner approval by mail ballot for any covenant modifications affecting property rights. She filed the emergency abatement amendment 18 months ago, claiming proper legal authorization. My brain automatically kicks into electrical troubleshooting mode. When complex systems fail repeatedly, you always trace back to verify the original connections were made correctly, according to code. How many homeowners actually voted in favor? 12 responses out of 67 total properties. That's 18% approval, not the required 67%. Every single legal action she's taken using these amendments constitutes fraud. The entire foundation of her house-stealing operation just crumbled into legal dust. But Vivian's moving faster than our legal discovery process. Monday brings an escalated demolition notice. 72 emergency hours instead of 30 standard days, claiming imminent structural collapse discovered during emergency engineering inspection. The inspection was conducted by her brother's construction company, naturally, keeping it all in the family. She's systematically destroying evidence, Marcus explains during our truck cab conference call. Once that house becomes rubble, you lose everything, and she buries any proof of procedural violations under tons of debris. Tuesday morning, I watch through binoculars from a Shell station as heavy construction equipment rolls up my driveway. Bulldozer, excavator, enough industrial machinery to erase my father's investment in half a day. The diesel exhaust mingles with crisp mountain air like industrial perfume announcing destruction. That's when Jessica calls with information that completely transforms everything we thought we understood. County political records show a systematic pattern of financial donations, she says, excitement crackling through the phone connection. Vivian's not just buying newspaper ads, she's been systematically purchasing local government officials. The building inspector who condemned your property? She pays his country club membership annually. Morrison, the deputy who served your restraining order, his daughter got a $5,000 scholarship from Vivian's Community Improvement Foundation. This isn't simple HOA abuse anymore. It's systematic, institutional corruption. Gets even better, Jessica continues breathlessly. I found 3 other families with virtually identical stories. Same emergency procedures, same forced sales, same below-market purchases by Blackwood Properties. Combined financial losses, $600,000 over 18 months. 600 grand stolen through legal manipulation. That's federal RICO racketeering territory. Can you get camera equipment to my property this afternoon? Why the sudden rush? I watched the excavator positioning itself next to my father's house, the retirement dream he never lived to see completed. The sound of diesel engines carries across the valley like mechanical thunder announcing war. Because that demolition crew isn't there to tear down a dangerous building. They're there to destroy evidence of the biggest real estate fraud this mountain's ever seen. Friday night, Jessica Brighton calls with the discovery that turns everything upside down. I've been digging through financial records all week, she says, papers rustling like autumn leaves in the background. Your HOA president isn't just greedy, she's desperate. Sarah and I are parked outside a 24-hour diner, living on truck stop coffee and pure stubbornness. The fluorescent lights cast everything in that sickly yellow glow that makes even hope look jaundiced. How desperate? Blackwood Mountain Properties owes $340,000 to a private lender in Atlanta. Loan shark rates, balloon payment due in 6 weeks. She's $200,000 short. The math hits me like touching a live wire. My renovated property would appraise at exactly $280,000. She doesn't just want my house, she needs it to avoid bankruptcy. This isn't harassment, I tell Sarah, the coffee suddenly tasting like burnt understanding. This is survival. Walter's Sunday night call provides the missing piece. His voice carries the satisfaction of a man about to settle old scores. Been thinking about our conversation, he says, ice clinking against glass in that familiar rhythm. During our divorce, I discovered Vivian's been running a shell game with assets, properties bought under fake company names, hidden bank accounts. She's been stealing from me for 2 years. He emails financial records showing her company was stable until the borrowing spree started. Each house theft funded the previous loan while setting up the next desperate acquisition. A real estate Ponzi scheme disguised as community improvement. Monday morning, while demolition crews position around my father's house like vultures around roadkill, Marcus Webb launches his coordinated legal assault. Multiple simultaneous filings that hit Vivian's operation like a power surge through faulty wiring. Challenge to invalid covenant amendments. Perjury charges for false sworn statements. Conspiracy charges against her bought and paid for building inspector. Emergency federal restraining order against demolition. But the smoking gun comes from Pete's granddaughter, college kid with computer skills and a grudge against bullies. Recovered deleted social media posts, she tells me Tuesday, excitement crackling through the phone. Screenshots of everything she thought was erased. The evidence makes my hands shake. Vivian bragging about cleaning up undesirable elements, celebrating each forced sale like war victories. Comments specifically targeting people who don't understand mountain values and certain types who don't belong here. She documented her own discrimination in digital ink. Wednesday brings Jessica's bombshell. The State Bureau of Investigation has been quietly building corruption cases across multiple mountain counties. Our situation fits a pattern they've been tracking for months. HOA abuse, systematic targeting of newcomers and elderly residents, coordinated property theft, the SBI agent explains. You're not victims, you're witnesses to organized crime. Thursday afternoon, Walter drops his legal nuclear weapon from 1,500 miles away. His divorce attorney files emergency motions to freeze all Vivian's business assets, claiming hidden income and illegal property transfers. The freeze hits immediately. No property sales, no account access, no balloon payment possible. Her empire just got padlocked by ex-husband revenge. Friday morning, the building inspector breaks like a man who can't sleep anymore. Calls Marcus directly, confessing to the corrupt relationship and offering testimony about promised renovation contracts on flipped properties. She guaranteed me work on every house she stole, he admits, voice shaking with either fear or conscience. Said we'd split the profits 50-50 after renovations. Standing in that diner parking lot, watching early morning mist roll off mountains where my father's dream house sits threatened by heavy machinery, I finally understand what we're really fighting. This isn't about HOA rules or property disputes. It's about a woman so desperate to avoid financial ruin that she'll steal houses from grieving sons and elderly neighbors, using corruption and discrimination as tools. But desperate people make desperate mistakes, and Vivienne Blackwood just made the mistake that's going to cost her everything. Saturday morning, Marcus Webb's office smells like fresh photocopies and righteous anger. Evidence spreads across his mahogany desk, like pieces of an electrical schematic I'm finally learning to read. Rain drums against windows, while Sarah organizes documents into attack formations. 3 piles: legal ammunition, financial evidence, criminal proof. Each stack represents another way to destroy the woman trying to steal my father's legacy. Multiple pressure points, Marcus explains, sketching connection lines between folders. Legal, financial, criminal, public relations. We hit her from directions she can't see coming. The legal trap starts simple. Expose her invalid covenant amendments in open court. Once those get declared fraudulent, every action she's taken transforms from civil dispute to criminal conspiracy. Prison time, not property settlements. Sarah coordinates media strategy with Jessica Brighton. The story practically writes itself. Mountain corruption meets systematic discrimination, complete with smoking gun social media posts and financial records. Visual evidence sells stories, Jessica explains during Tuesday's War Council, her notebook filling with tactical details. Hidden camera footage of her coaching that inspector, or recordings of discriminatory statements. The inspector's already agreed to wear a wire for immunity, Marcus offers, adjusting his glasses. Desperate men make excellent witnesses. My job involves technical documentation, proving every safety violation she's claimed against my property is fabricated. When you spend 30 years troubleshooting electrical systems, you develop an eye for manufactured problems versus real hazards. The independent structural engineer I hire confirms what my gut already knew. Normal renovation needs, 0 emergency issues. His professional report systematically demolishes every claim in Vivian's assessment. Meanwhile, Walter's forensic accountant discovers financial crimes that go beyond hidden assets. Vivian's been treating HOA community funds like her personal checking account, borrowing homeowner money to fund property acquisitions, repaying with profits from forced sales. Embezzlement of association funds, the accountant explains via crackling conference call. That's felony territory, plus civil liability to every homeowner she's stolen from. But our secret weapon emerges from community organizing. Frank and Doris Henderson's Concerned Neighbors group explodes from 12 founding members to 34 witnesses in 72 hours. Turns out half our mountain community has been terrorized by Vivian's violations, but feared speaking up alone. The stories pour out like confessions at a revival meeting. Elderly Mrs. Patterson, hit with a $1,000 landscaping compliance fine 2 days before her husband's funeral. The Kowalski family targeted for excessive noise violations after their autistic son played outside too enthusiastically. Vietnam veteran Jim Torres fined for flying his American flag at non-regulation height. Every case follows identical patterns: sudden violations, escalating pressure, financial desperation, forced compliance, or sale. Wednesday night, we synchronize our attack like electricians wiring a complex panel. Every connection must happen in perfect sequence, or the system shorts out. Thursday morning, criminal complaints filed simultaneously with Sheriff's Department and District Attorney, alleging perjury and conspiracy. Thursday afternoon, federal civil rights complaints submitted, claiming housing discrimination under color of law. Friday, media blitz featuring affected families, plus public release of Vivian's deleted social media confessions. Saturday, public confrontation at community meeting, cameras rolling, SBI agents documenting witness statements. The contingency planning covers every escape route. Accelerated demolition, federal injunctions ready, attempted property sales despite asset freeze. Walter's attorney can expand court orders instantly. Flight from jurisdiction, FBI involvement due to federal civil rights violations. Sarah handles my psychological preparation, keeping me focused when every instinct screams to drive over and confront Vivian directly. The scent of her determination, coffee mixed with fierce protectiveness, fills our truck cab during strategy sessions. Think like an electrician, she reminds me, squeezing my hand. You always shut off the power before touching dangerous wiring. We kill her power first, then dismantle everything safely. Marcus coaches me for what he calls the public execution phase. Saturday's community meeting becomes our courtroom, neighbors as jury, media as witnesses, justice as judge. She'll try making you look unhinged, he warns, organizing talking points on index cards. That's her only remaining defense. Stay calm, present facts, let her desperation show while you demonstrate control. Jessica designs questions that provoke admissions. Cornered people say stupid things, especially when cameras record everything, and their carefully constructed lies start unraveling in real time. By Friday afternoon, we've evolved from isolated victims into organized resistance. Lawyers, media support, federal investigators, 34 angry neighbors, and a growing pile of evidence that could send Vivian to federal prison. Standing in that conference room, surrounded by the weapons we've forged from her own corruption, I finally understand what my father would have done. He'd have fought smart, fought legally, and fought until justice prevailed. The woman who thought she could steal from a grieving son using paperwork and bought officials is about to learn what happens when you target someone who knows how to trace problems back to their source. Monday morning hits like a lightning strike at 6 a.m. I'm standing at my property line with Jessica Brighton and her camera crew, watching Vivian's demolition circus try to figure out what federal court orders mean. The smell of diesel exhaust mixes with pine needles, while a bulldozer operator stares at competing legal documents like they're written in ancient Greek. His weathered hands shake slightly as he examines Marcus Webb's restraining order. Nobody warned him this job came with federal lawsuits attached. Vivian arrives in her spotless white SUV, stepping out in designer hiking boots that cost more than most people's rent. Those sunglasses reflect morning light like mirrors, hiding the soul of someone who's running out of moves. "Officer Morrison!" Her voice carries that edge of desperation, disguised as authority. "This restraining order is meaningless. We have emergency county authorization for immediate demolition." Morrison looks like a man caught between two live electrical wires, both guaranteed to hurt. Years of electrical work taught me to recognize that exact expression, when someone realizes they're in over their head, and every choice leads to pain. "Ma'am, federal orders generally override county permits," he says carefully, while Jessica's camera captures his obvious discomfort. "Maybe the lawyers should handle this." That's when Vivian's mask starts melting. "This is exactly what I warned you about," she snaps, pointing at me like I'm carrying plague. "This man has been threatening our community, filing harassment lawsuits, intimidating honest homeowners through legal terrorism." Her voice climbs with each accusation, that practiced control evaporating like morning mist in sunlight. Jessica's camera catches every crack in the facade, every glimpse of the real Vivian beneath professional polish. "Ma'am," I respond with electrical technician calm, "I haven't threatened anyone. I've simply exercised my property rights." "Property rights?" Her laugh sounds like glass breaking against concrete. "You people think you can move into our communities and ignore standards we've maintained for decades." "You people." The phrase hangs in mountain air like smoke from a structure fire. Morrison's face changes as he processes what just got recorded. Even the demolition crew shifts uncomfortably. Discrimination has a particular smell, and everyone just got a noseful. But this morning's public meltdown is just warm-up for the real escalation. Marcus Webb calls Tuesday afternoon with news that makes my blood pressure spike. She filed ethics complaints against me with the state bar, he explains, frustration crackling through the phone. Claims I'm harassing her with frivolous motions and encouraging false criminal charges. Can she actually do that? Anyone can file ethics complaints. They're rarely successful without evidence of misconduct, but they tie up lawyers in investigation hell for months. She's trying to bankrupt us through process alone. Simultaneously, a $100,000 defamation lawsuit lands on my doorstep. Vivian claims my malicious public statements and media appearances have destroyed her reputation and business prospects. The woman who's been systematically defaming property owners is suing me for exposing her systematic defamation. The irony could power Christmas lights. Wednesday's emergency community meeting reveals exactly how cornered she's become. 52 neighbors pack a community center that smells like decades of potluck dinners and folding chair frustration. More victims emerge like survivors after a disaster. The Henderson's garden gnome story was just the beginning. Elderly Mrs. Brighton forced to sell after septic violations, requiring immediate $15,000 repairs. Teacher Rebecca Kowalski fined $3,000 for parking on her own grass during family graduation. Disabled veteran Mike Torres threatened with legal action because his service dog allegedly barked excessively. But the real bombshell comes from an unexpected source. The county building inspector, who's been living with guilt-driven insomnia for weeks. "I need to clear my conscience," Ray Patterson announces, standing up with hands that shake like autumn leaves. What we did to these people wasn't legal inspections. It was coordinated fraud. The room goes cemetery quiet, except for Jessica's camera motor, and the sound of 40-plus people holding their breath. Vivian didn't just pay for my golf membership, Patterson continues, sweat beading on his forehead despite cool mountain air. She promised renovation contracts on every property we condemned. 50-50 split on profits after forced sales. His confession includes details that transform everything. Pre-written violation reports, manufactured safety hazards, coordinated timing with her property acquisition loans. But Pete's follow-up testimony delivers the kill shot. Rising from his chair like a man finally ready to confess mortal sins, he provides evidence that even I didn't expect. She didn't just document problems at Garrett's place, Pete says, voice steady now with determination. She created them. I watched her break windows she later photographed as security hazards. Saw her disconnect electrical lines to justify code violations. She damaged that siding herself to support structural deterioration claims. The room erupts in angry murmurs. Jessica's camera captures faces twisted with outrage, neighbors realizing they've been living under systematic criminal conspiracy, disguised as community standards. She wasn't inspecting properties, Pete concludes, looking directly at Vivian's empty chair where she should have been sitting. She was manufacturing evidence to steal houses from good people. Evidence fabrication, criminal conspiracy, systematic fraud under color of authority. We just graduated from civil dispute to federal racketeering case. Thursday morning brings Vivian's final desperate play, and it's uglier than anything I expected from someone who calls herself a community leader. The smell of fresh coffee and determination fills Marcus Webb's office as we review overnight developments. Sarah sits beside me, her jaw set with the kind of anger that comes from watching someone try to destroy everything your family worked for. She's not going quietly, Marcus warns, spreading new legal documents across his desk like evidence of war crimes. Filed for emergency protective orders against you, Pete, the building inspector, and 3 other neighbors who testified Wednesday night. On what grounds? Claims you're all part of an organized harassment campaign designed to intimidate and silence her. Says she's received death threats from anonymous callers and feels genuinely unsafe in her own community. The audacity could power the entire mountain. The woman who's been systematically terrorizing neighbors for 2 years is now claiming she's the victim of terrorism. But Vivian's not stopping at legal paperwork. Thursday afternoon, Jessica Brighton calls with news that makes my hands clench around my truck's steering wheel. She's offering bribes, Jessica reports, barely controlled excitement in her voice. My editor got a call this morning from someone representing Blackwood Properties. $20,000 to kill the corruption story, plus an exclusive advertising contract worth $50,000 annually. Your editor taking it? He hung up and called the State Bureau of Investigation immediately. Attempted bribery of media outlets to suppress criminal investigations? That's federal territory. Meanwhile, Vivian's trying to pressure individual witnesses into changing their testimony. Mrs. Patterson receives an anonymous letter claiming her late husband's military pension could be reviewed if she continues supporting false allegations against respected community leaders. Mike Torres, the disabled veteran, finds his mailbox stuffed with information about consequences of filing false police reports and legal penalties for perjury in federal cases. Rebecca Kowalski, the teacher, gets a call at her school suggesting that certain employment backgrounds might not be suitable for family-oriented educational environments. Each threat follows the same pattern, anonymous but specific, designed to terrify without leaving fingerprints. Classic intimidation tactics from someone who spent years perfecting psychological warfare against property owners. But Friday brings the escalation that finally pushes federal authorities from interested observers to active participants. The FBI field office in Atlanta receives reports of witness intimidation in an ongoing civil rights investigation. Agent Sandra Walsh calls Marcus Webb directly. Mr. Patterson, the building inspector, contacted us about pressure to recant his testimony. Someone's been calling his house at all hours, claiming to represent concerned citizens who know where his grandchildren attend school. Child threats. She's threatening children to cover up real estate fraud. We're treating this as an active criminal investigation now, Agent Walsh continues. Conspiracy to violate civil rights under color of law, plus witness intimidation in a federal case. Your client needs to be very careful about his safety. That weekend, I install security cameras around Pete's cabin and my truck. 30 years of electrical work included plenty of security system installations. I know how to wire surveillance that catches everything. Saturday night proves my paranoia justified. Motion sensors trigger at 2:47 a.m. as someone prowls around Pete's property, attempting to disable his outdoor lighting. My infrared cameras capture clear footage of a figure in dark clothing, systematically cutting electrical connections to landscape lights. The same electrical connections Pete testified about Vivian damaging at my property. Sunday morning brings the discovery that transforms everything. Tire tracks in soft mud beside Pete's driveway match the distinctive tread pattern of Vivian's white SUV. She's not hiring accomplices for her intimidation campaign. She's conducting it personally. This gives us everything, Marcus explains during our emergency meeting Sunday afternoon. Physical evidence placing her at the scene of witness intimidation, caught on camera, engaging in the same evidence fabrication she used against your property. But Vivian's final, desperate move reveals just how completely she's lost control of her carefully constructed operation. Monday morning, the county sheriff's department receives an anonymous tip about illegal weapons and drug manufacturing at my property. The tip provides specific details: times when I'm allegedly not present, locations of supposed hidden contraband, even serial numbers for weapons I've never owned. It's elaborate enough to trigger a search warrant, detailed enough to seem credible, and desperate enough to prove she's willing to fabricate federal crimes to frame me for anything that might discredit my testimony. Sheriff Morrison, who's been looking increasingly uncomfortable with Vivian's claims since Wednesday's community meeting, delivers the search warrant personally. But he also brings something unexpected, a recording device. "Ma'am," he tells Vivian while she waits eagerly for my arrest, "I need you to repeat exactly what you told me about these alleged weapons. For the record." Her eager cooperation in providing false information about federal firearms violations gets captured in digital clarity, complete with her suggestion that people like him probably have illegal modifications and dangerous intentions. By Monday evening, the woman who started this war by trying to steal my father's house with fake paperwork has just handed federal prosecutors evidence of filing false police reports about weapons violations. She's graduated from real estate fraud to attempted frame-up involving federal firearms charges. The trap she's been building around me just snaps shut on her instead. Tuesday evening, the Whispering Pines Community Center transforms into something between a courtroom and a gladiatorial arena. The smell of nervous sweat mingles with the lingering scent of last week's church potluck, as nearly 100 people pack folding chairs arranged in confrontational rows. Vivian enters like she owns the place, which, in her mind, she probably does. Designer blazer, perfectly styled hair, that clipboard gripped like a shield against reality. She's brought her own lawyer, a private security guard, and the kind of confidence that comes from 2 years of never losing a property battle. She doesn't know that FBI agent Walsh and 2 SBI investigators are sitting in the back row, recording equipment active, waiting to document federal crimes in real time. The meeting opens with Vivian attempting damage control, her voice carrying that practiced authority I've learned to recognize as desperation disguised as competence. Recent accusations against our homeowner association represent nothing more than coordinated harassment by disgruntled individuals who refuse to follow community standards, she announces to a room full of neighbors who know better. We've maintained property values and neighborhood character for over a decade through consistent enforcement of reasonable regulations. These false allegations— Excuse me, I interrupt, standing up with documents Marcus Webb prepared for this exact moment. Could you explain to everyone here exactly which homeowners voted to approve the covenant amendments you've been using to steal houses? Her composure flickers like faulty wiring. All covenant modifications follow proper legal procedures. 12 out of 67, I continue, projecting my voice like I'm calling out electrical hazards on a job site. 18% approval on amendments that required 2/3 majority. That means every legal action you've taken in the past 18 months has been fraud. The room erupts in angry murmurs. Vivian's security guard shifts uncomfortably, probably wondering if his employment contract covers conspiracy to commit federal crimes. Mr. Mackenzie, you're out of order. No, says Agent Walsh from the back row, standing up and showing her federal identification. Mrs. Blackwood, you're under arrest. The words hit the room like an electrical surge through wet wiring. Vivian goes white as mountain snow, her clipboard clattering to the floor as handcuffs click around wrists that have signed fraudulent documents for 2 years. Conspiracy to violate civil rights under color of law, systematic fraud, witness intimidation, and filing false federal firearms reports, Agent Walsh recites, while Vivian's lawyer frantically whispers about remaining silent. You have the right to remain attorney, but Vivian's beyond listening to legal advice. The financial pressure, the failed bribes, the collapsed intimidation campaign, everything crashes down at once, like a house built with substandard wiring. This is insane, she shouts, struggling against restraints while camera phones capture every moment of her public destruction. I've dedicated my life to protecting this community from people who don't belong here. There it is. The discrimination confession, recorded on dozens of devices, witnessed by 100 neighbors, and officially documented by federal agents. People who don't understand our values, she continues, completely unhinged now. City people, outsiders, individuals who think money gives them the right to destroy everything we've built. Agent Walsh doesn't need to encourage her. Desperate people always confess when their world collapses, especially when they've convinced themselves they're victims instead of criminals. You want to know the truth? Vivian screams at the crowd of neighbors she's terrorized for years. Half of you shouldn't be living here anyway. This community was perfect before we started letting anyone with cash buy property. The room goes silent, except for the sound of phones recording and Agent Walsh's partner taking detailed notes. Even her own lawyer has stopped trying to shut her up. Frank Henderson stands up slowly, his voice carrying the authority of someone who's survived 80 years of bullies trying to intimidate good people. Vivian, you've been stealing from families, threatening children, and destroying lives for money, he says with calm dignity that makes her hysteria look even worse. We're not the problem. You are. The community votes unanimously to remove her as HOA president, rescind all fines issued during her tenure, and demand restitution for families forced to sell under fraudulent violations. As federal agents escort Vivian toward their unmarked sedan, she makes one final attempt at victim status. You'll regret this, she calls out to the crowd of neighbors watching her perp walk. This community will fall apart without proper leadership. Pete shuffles forward, his weathered face showing the peace that comes from finally doing the right thing. "Lady," he says quietly, "this community's been falling apart since you started running it. We're finally putting it back together." The last thing I see before the federal car drives away is Vivian's face pressed against rear window glass. The expression of someone who finally understands that consequences exist, even for people who thought they were above the law. Standing on the community center steps, surrounded by neighbors who fought back against systematic corruption, I finally feel something I haven't experienced since Dad died. Justice served with a side of mountain air that tastes like freedom. 6 months later, I'm standing on my newly renovated deck, watching Sarah hang wind chimes that catch morning light and make music out of mountain breeze. The smell of fresh wood stain mingles with coffee from our kitchen, a kitchen that exists because we fought for the right to build it. Mountain Justice Renovation has exploded to 347,000 YouTube subscribers, who tune in weekly to watch us transform Dad's investment into the retirement sanctuary he never lived to enjoy. The series documenting our legal battle became our most popular content, with viewers from 38 states sharing their own HOA horror stories. Our Know Your Property Rights series gets requested by real estate lawyers across the country. Turns out, 30 years of electrical troubleshooting translates perfectly into legal problem solving. Both require tracing issues back to their source and fixing bad connections. Vivian's downfall became a masterclass in federal justice. 18 months in minimum security prison, plus $400,000 in restitution payments to affected homeowners. Her real estate license got permanently revoked, and Blackwood Properties dissolved in bankruptcy proceedings that left creditors fighting over scraps. The community transformation has been remarkable. Our new HOA leadership, headed by Frank Henderson and a board of actual neighbors instead of wannabe dictators, focuses on real community improvements instead of harassment campaigns. Gone are the 47-page covenant restrictions. The new rules fit on 2 pages and focus on genuine safety issues rather than architectural conformity. Garden gnomes are officially protected community art. Property values increased 15% once word spread that Whispering Pines had eliminated its toxic HOA culture. Young families started moving in. Elderly residents stopped living in fear, and the mountain community began feeling like an actual neighborhood instead of a prison camp. The wider impact surprised everyone. The Whispering Pines case inspired state legislature to pass the HOA Reform Act of 2025. Comprehensive legislation limiting emergency procedures, requiring genuine due process, and establishing criminal penalties for HOA board members who abuse their authority. Jessica Brighton won the State Press Association's Investigative Journalism Award for her coverage of our story. Her follow-up series exposed similar corruption in 7 other mountain communities, leading to federal investigations and multiple arrests. The social good initiative came naturally. We established the Mountain Community Legal Defense Fund, using proceeds from our YouTube channel and donations from viewers who've survived their own HOA nightmares. The fund provides free legal assistance for property owners facing similar abuse. In our first 6 months, the Defense Fund helped 12 families across 4 counties fight bogus violations, illegal fines, and fraudulent emergency proceedings. 3 more HOA presidents have been criminally charged, and 2 communities have completely restructured their governance. Personal healing happened slowly, like good renovation work. The anger that burned in my chest for months gradually transformed into something more useful. Determination to prevent other families from experiencing what we survived. Sarah loves mountain life more than either of us expected. She started a blog called City Girl Goes Rural, that documents everything from learning to can vegetables to installing solar panels. Her city job became remote work, and she's happier than I've seen her since Dad got sick. Pete became an unofficial grandfather to half the neighborhood. His guilt over accepting Vivian's bribes transformed into fierce protection for anyone facing property disputes. He's our early warning system for suspicious HOA activity. Most importantly, Dad's house became the sanctuary he envisioned. Every morning, drinking coffee on this deck while watching sunrise paint mountains gold, I feel his presence in the wind through pine trees and the satisfaction of honest work completed. The closing wisdom comes from experience earned through electrical fires, legal battles, and community organizing. Bullies survive by convincing victims they're powerless, But when people organize, document everything, and fight back with evidence and determination, even the most entrenched corruption crumbles. Your property rights matter. Never let anyone steal them with paperwork and intimidation. Sometimes, the best revenge is simply refusing to be driven away.